First is sustainable energy management and environmental sustainability. And I would like to introduce some of the key initiatives taken by SOE, which include integration of the carbon accounting, ESG frameworks, circular economy, and renewable energy concepts into the curriculum, promoting climate action and decarbonization strategies. Recently, SOE has successfully organized hands-on corporate GHG accounting workshop at NICMAR University, further strengthening the experimental learning and reinforcing our commitment to the practical industry-oriented sustainability education. A proud milestone in this journey is recognition of third UA Sustainability Conference Award 2026, where we honored with the prestigious Sustainability Karma Campus Leadership Award 2026, Leadership in Sustainability Education and Excellence in ESG and Circular Economy Initiatives. So, in today's world, sustainability is no longer optional, it is measurable. And one of the most powerful tools is driving this change in the construction and manufacturing sectors is the Environmental Product Declaration, that is EPD. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Sarvanand Jai Bharti, an accomplished environmental engineer, sustainability consultant, researcher, and educator. Mr. Sarvanand is the founder and senior sustainability engineer at Carbon Figure Academy, a global sustainability consultancy and educational platform dedicated to life cycle assessment, EPD, product carbon footprinting, and GHG accounting. Through his organization, he has successfully delivered consulting projects and high impact training programs across India and internationally. He is certified OpenLCA trainer, a qualified ECO EPD officer, and a recognized LCA EPD consultant and trainer. His expertise spans over building life cycle assessment, ISO 14067 carbon footprinting, and global EPD frameworks. Currently completing his PhD in environmental engineering, his research focuses on circular economy and sustainability in building materials. With rich academic experience as a former assistant professor, multiple international publications, patents, and numerous expert talks to his credit, Mr. Sarvanand has beautifully bridges academia and industry practices. His work empowers professionals and students to move beyond the theory and apply sustainability tools in real-world decision-making. So this session will be valuable for all of us as a future leaders in sustainable construction empowerment and environmental management. So without further delay, it's over to you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor Dr. Sudan sir, for the warm invite and quick arrangement for this session. Let me share the screen. I hope the screen is visible, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, Professor. So I welcome all of you once again for this, specific and very brief webinar on Introduction to Environmental Product Declaration. And it's very good to be virtually at NICMAR University. Earlier it was planning to be there in person, but still, we have somehow managed it to be virtual. So this is all about my green credentials. Thank you for the warm introduction. And this is what's happening really at the Carbon Figure Academy. I run Carbon Figure Academy since last April 2025, and it's going to be a year in a month. So I offer two things. One is consultancy and training about same topics, LCA, EPD, and PCF. Right. So I offer online courses, live courses every once in a month, and I also run a YouTube channel where you can able to make all of things quite in brief manner, right? And also the consulting, right? And that's quite very exaggerated footprint of my students, but still across the global regions, right? And this is all about the webinar we are going to have today. So we will get to introduced about the topic. So what's happening, why LCA is specifically very important, right? So as a postgraduate students, you may have a lot of directions in front of you in the name of sustainability, and it's quite challenging to choose one particular direction. And I personally feel choosing that one direction is very much important, right? Especially while you are building your career or expanding your career options, right? So that's how we will start with, and we will jump into the EPD. So what is, how is, why is, all those things we will see. And finally, we will complete the session with a brief idea about how an EPD project is commissioned. So from the very basics, okay, as a layout, I would like to give you a layout so that you will know what is to be done, right? So how it is done, you will gather over your experience, right? So that's how we are going to have the session today. And I personally insist all of you to take up the questions, as noted over the session is happening. And at the end of the session, you please ask all your questions, and please ask a lot of questions. I would like to have more questions on today's session, right? So more than the slides, I believe through the questions only you learn more, right? So I request that specifically make note of your questions then and ask it at the end of the session, right? So here it is. So changing job market landscape, everybody knows AI is eating up all the jobs, and we have some indications, right? Fastest growing and declining jobs by 2030, speculated by World Economic Forum. So you can see in the growing job list in the left side, you see environmental engineers at number 12, right? So environmental engineers, it's like very specific term, but still we may rewrite that as environmental and sustainability professional as a whole, at various capacities like science background, management background, and engineering background, right? So that's the job we can see. And to be specifically about the skill sets, the fastest growing skills by 2030, we can see environmental stewardship at number 10, right? So here is the term stewardship. It's a inclusive terminology, we can understand that way, which indicates no matter whatever the profession you belong to, you may be working for a agriculture producer, or you may be working for a finance, you may be working for a automobile manufacturer or a policy maker, whatever it may be, irrespective of your particular profession, how you may able to measure, monitor, and mitigate the environmental related impacts, right, at very highest technical level. So that collective skill sets are called stewardship. Environmental stewardship is not a single skill, it's a collective skill set. So currently you are sitting in front of the screen, and you are about to learn or you are about to enhance something you already known, right? So this also comes under enhancing your environmental stewardship in different perspective, we can say, right? So environmental stewardship is being expected at the top 10 growing skills, right? And this is the major reason why Carbon Fear Academy was also specifically founded to address the gap in the market, bridge the academic and the industry requirement, right? And personally speaking, you have a lot of elements and aspects are there in the sustainability as a ocean, right? So there are eco-labeling schemes, CBAM, we see eco-design and ESG or sustainability reporting. Sometimes we say GHG accounting, right? So everything is there, but personally I believe that LCA skill is a big fish, right? So it's not because I practice that, but why I mentioned that LCA is the biggest fish in the ocean of sustainability. So when you learn LCA, when you become introductory to intermediate level of expert in the LCA context, with that knowledge set and skill set, you can able to relate all other elements in the sustainability regain, right? So that is the specific reason why I mentioned LCA skill as a big fish. So if you take any other thing, that would be like a separate island. You cannot able to directly relate, or you cannot able to confidently comment on other things, other results, other numbers you see, right? But when you know the LCA, that kind of confidence you will gain, right? That is the only reason I mentioned this, that LCA skill is a big fish in the sustainability ocean, right? So here comes the session officially starts with the environmental product declaration, right? So we have definition always for every little thing, right? It's a type 3 eco labeling or environmental labeling. So straight away we say type 3. What about type 1, type 2? We will get to know, right? So it's a voluntary, transparent and science-based communication tool that provides a detailed, quantified environmental information about a product or a process or a service life cycle impacts. So normally we may think LCA can be done for products only. No, it can be done for a process, it can be done for service also, right? So same way, the EPD can also be executed and implemented for a product, a process and a service whole life cycle impacts, right? So for everything there will be some history, right? So normally people say there is science behind everything, right? So but I personally feel beyond science or before science, history came, right? So know your history, will help you to position yourself very much better in the today's context, right? So no matter whichever state or whichever the global region you come from, first know your history of your place, then you understand where you are standing right now and who you literally are, right? Same way we have quite kind of a history for EPD. As you see, it all started in 1997 when ISO came into the picture and published their first ever guidelines for third type of eco labeling. Earlier it was type 1 was there, type 2 was there. Obviously when type 1, type 2 was there, when someone came forward with the type 3, obviously they might have felt something bad about the existing type 1 and type 2, right? Same way, type 1 has a limitation, type 2 had a limitation. To overcome that limitation and come up with a very rigid kind of eco labeling scheme, ISO came with ISO 14025 in 1997. So that ISO 14025 is nothing but for framework for type 3 in eco labeling. That type 3 eco labeling is nothing but environmental product declaration, right? So following by that, in 2003, almost half a decade, first ever program operator was launched in Sweden, right? Sweden obviously is in Europe and it's not in America. So in this way, at this point, I would like to tell you a simple thing. Being from Asian continent and being from India, we always thought or we always think that every wonders or every innovation or every something new kind of concept comes from America, right? But it's not the fact. It actually starts in Europe. America implements it rigorously. Then Asia is getting sold out of it. So, right, that's the sequence of evolution or whatever the tech or whatever the market. So the same way you may understand the EPD and LCA market even today also, right? So it all starts and very much popularized in Europe, and America copies it and selling it to the other parts of the global region. Obviously other parts, very bigger economy lies in Asia, right? So we have India, we have China, we have Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, all those peoples, right? So that's how EPD International was the very first program operator launched in 2003. Then in 2010, again almost half a decade later, very first program operator launched in US. They are nothing but called ULE, Underwriters Laboratories Environment. So quite very old one, right? Very old one in the context of America. And EPD International is quite older in a global perspective. Right. Then over the year, people started different program operators in different global country regions. Okay. So currently speaking, there are 30 plus, right? 30 plus program operators exist in the world. Right. You may wonder what is program operator? What is mean by that? We will see. Right. So you just get to know about the term program operator. So once the program operators are becoming more in number, there is a need, okay, new need emerge in the market to channelize and to coordinate the program operators, right? So the Echo platform came, and they are based out of Europe again, but still they are about to coordinate all the program operators in the global countries and to come up with the uniform structure and uniform rules of LCA and all those things, right? That happens over the years 2010 to 2013, and currently that Echo platform is doing great things, right? So they are almost on the verge of coordinating with all the existing program operators globally, right? And currently, if you speaking, growing integration of EPDs is happening across the different regions, especially into the construction and building sector standards, right, as a very major implications and requirement, right? So now I hope you understand it's a very key milestones of historical events behind environmental product declaration, right? So since the launch of ISO 14025, it still remains the one and only ISO standard meant for EPD, right? So there was no additional or a family of standards was not developed. Only one standard, ISO 14025, right? And following that, all EPD program operators are functioning, right, in their respective region. And when I said type 1, type 2, type 3, you should understand what's the difference between them, right? So type 1, you take a manufacturer, it may be a manufacturing of any product, okay? So they are going to a voluntary organization, right? So the voluntary organization outlines certain criteria to be met by the manufactured product, okay? So in India, for that voluntary organization, we can take a Green Pro as example, right? Green Pro under CII. I hope you know about it, right? So they come up with the criteria, and once the criteria is satisfactorily met by the concerned product, then they announce, okay, we recognize that this particular manufacturer's so and so product is a green product to the consumer, right, publicly through their website, right? So this kind of eco labeling is called type 1 eco labeling, or in other words we can say type 1 eco labeling is actually a certification, right? It's like an award, or it's kind of a recognition. You should understand the difference, right? Whereas the type 2 comes, okay, there is no voluntary organization, only the manufacturer and the consumer. So the manufacturer produces the product, and they themselves declare that their product is a green product. It's not a certification, it's a self-claiming, okay? But still, this self-claiming is accepted as per ISO standard under type 2 eco labeling. So the major difference is between type 1 and type 2 is type 1 is actually a multi-criteria centric, which means the particular voluntary organization may come up with the n number of criteria to be met, okay? Whereas in the type 2, it is all about only one criteria, right? So for example, you might have purchased any product, and in their package, okay, scrap that example. Let me come up with another example. I hope many of you would have wear the specs, right? So these days everyone wears specs by birth. So recently I come up with I came across with the advertisement of Lenskart, where they mentioned in a simple Instagram post that their frames are now more ecologically friendly. Why? Because they mentioned their frames are nowadays prepared with bioacetate as one of the major raw material. Earlier they used synthetic acetate, which obviously impacted more the environment, but now they moved to biologically synthesizing the acetate, and because of that bio so and so, they claim that their frames are quite ecologically friendly, right? So when they said bioacetate is being utilized in their product, it's self-claiming, okay, and they did not mention any standard organization logo or any technical information, even under some star symbol, conditions apply, so and so, nothing. It was a simple picture, a frame, and they put an arrow mark and they mention it's a bioacetate frame, okay. So that is a simple example of type 2 eco-labeling. It's a self-claiming based on a single criteria. So utilizing a bio-based raw material is the only criteria they want to highlight. So type 1 is a multi-criteria, type 2 is a single criteria. But you may wonder, there don't need to be any scientific proof behind the claim. Yes, definitely there should be a scientific claim. So at this juncture only, sometimes the type 2 eco-labeling becomes greenwashing, right? So we call it as greenwashing when the brand purposely wants to brainwash the consumers by the terms called green, eco-labeling, so and so, right? So that term, that kind of activity is called greenwashing. So that's the point, and that's the drawback of type 2 eco-labeling. Sometimes without a scientific background and proof or any kind of a documentation, such a self-claim may become a greenwashing, right? Here comes the type 3. So the type 3, where the manufacturer produces the product and they subject the product for a life cycle assessment, and that result of the life cycle assessment mandatorily goes to the third party verification and getting published as a EPD under a given program operator, and that published EPD is communicated to the consumer through a public website. So now can you understand the difference between type 3 and type 1, type 2? Type 3 LCA is mandatory, followed by a third party individual or independent verification, whereas in other type 1 and type 2, LCA can be part of it, but it's not mandatory, right? So that is the major difference between type 1, type 2 and type 3, right? And these are the specified individual stages in environmental product declaration development, okay. So search for a suitable PCR is the first point, right? So what is the PCR? We will see, right? Then based on the PCR, you conduct the LCA, right? Then once the LCA is done, in conducting the LCA, you use software, you use the reporting, preparation, all those skills and all. Then you compile the EPD. So compilation of EPD is having two parts. One is preparation of detailed LCA report and preparation of draft EPD document, right? Two documents have to be prepared under compilation. Once both of them are ready, you go to the third party verifier, where both the documents gets verified and finally it is getting published, right? So these are the typical stages involved in the EPD, right? And now we may able to jump into each process in detail, right? So we have a search for a suitable PCR, identify the applicable product category rules. So PCR means product category rules that define the methodology and scope for conducting the LCA. Actually it's LCA, not EPD, okay. Then you perform the LCA based on the guidelines provided in the PCR, right? Then you prepare the documents as per the program operator's requirement and standards, formatting, all those things. Then you go for the independent verification. So when you go for verification, it's not randomly going to anybody for a third party verification. So under program operator, there will be a set of rules, there will be a set of PCRs, and there will be a set of verifiers also. So only within the boundary of the program operator you have to perform, right? And finally you publish. So when you publish the EPD, it is being published under human readable format and machine readable format, right? So now here is the program operator. So please take a moment and look at the infographic and try to understand the sequence. Right? It all starts from the top one, manufacturer produces a product. Right? So that manufacturer goes to a consultant. Right? So that consultant does the LCA for the manufacturer, and that LCA is going for the third party verification. Now, the three aspects like the consultant and their activities, the LCA and the third party verification, all these are governed by an organization. So that organization is nothing but program operator. So the program operator is nothing but an establishment of voluntary organizations by the group of experts in the respective field. Right? So they function based on two major manuals or guidelines. They are called general program instruction and product category rules. So each of them is prepared by respective or different set of technical committees in the background. So GPI is like a Bible kind of thing for a program operator. Right? So each and every rules and regulations, everything would be there in the GPI. Finally it's a document. Okay. And based on the product coverage, single PCR or multiple PCRs will be there under a program operator. So now the the product category rules is being supplied by the program operator for the three elements. We can say consultant, LCA study and the verification. So ultimately when everything gets aligned, they are finally publish the EPDs through their public website or portal, and through which the consumers can able to consume the information. Right? So now all of such program operator has to be managed effectively. Right? So number of program operators managed by a single organization called a ECO platform. Right? So ECO, it's a ECO, right? ECO platform. So they are based in Brussels, Germany, I think. Germany or some other European country. Right? So now I hope you understand now what is meant by program operator. Right? So they come up with the rules and regulations. They don't need to be a government organizations always. Right? And in India, there is no program operator currently speaking for any particular product sector, but globally there are n number of program operators available. Some regions we may see product sector wise program operators. They publish only the particular product EPDs alone. Right? On the other hand, you can take EPD International, which was the very first one established in Sweden. So they are having a more and more product coverage. Right? And we can say Eco Passport, PEP, as one of the major program operator which is publishing EPDs for electrical and electronic products, majorly speaking. Right? If it is the electrical product, they are the popular program operator. Right? In EPD International, on the other hand, they are focusing on construction products, but still varieties of other product sectors are also getting covered under EPD International. Right? So now I hope you understand what is a program operator. Right? And as I mentioned, finding a program operator is the first step in the EPD development. You have to choose a program operator. Then you jump into their available PCR list and find out the relevant PCR for your product. Okay, sir, I have a so and so product, but for the concerned program operator, there is no PCR for my product. So what should I do? You change the program operator, look for the relevant PCR. That's all. Right? And in the extreme case, I have come across all the program operators globally no program operator has a PCR for my product means you may initiate creating a PCR for your product. There is a procedure for that also exist, right? So here it is PCR, product category rules. So if you see LCA, these two are the required standards, right? ISO 14040 and 14044. So we can say they are the guidelines for conducting the LCA. Whereas 14040 establishes the fundamental framework, whereas 14044 gives the detailed guidelines for executing that 4-stage framework, right? So now this is PCR, right? So on top of 14040 and 44, allied ISO and EN standards are put upon, and additionally some additional requirements, other requirements are sought out. Okay, data requirements, module coverage, mandatory module coverage. This is the boundary to be followed. These are the assumptions that are acceptable or not acceptable. And this is how you have to finally report your result likewise. So now I hope you understand PCR is nothing but a very detailed guidelines for conducting and presenting your LCA for the context of EPD, right? So it's like a recipe, detailed recipe for making a LCA of your product, right? And more than conducting a LCA, the PCR gives guidelines for presenting your results of the LCA. So that is where PCR gets significance, right? In a simple example, if you follow 14044 and do a LCA report means that can be 30 to 40 pages. With that number of pages, you can cover all the required things. Okay, but whereas if you think about the PCR, when you want to prepare a report based on a PCR, the concerned report will go beyond 60 to 70 pages, right? So that's the variation. So additional amount of declaration and representation is required from the perspective of a PCR, right? So that's the major difference, right? So this is a simple process flow of a development of a PCR. So as a young and early stage career fellows won't be part of this process, but still you may able to understand this. So when there is a need for a PCR, you initiate a discussion with the concerned program operator. So they will form a technical group or working group towards that, and they are about to define the product category, and they will prepare the PCR drafting. Okay. So once the draft PCR is ready, they will share in their website for a public consultation. And once the consultation period is over, any inputs and any other changes, modifications will be done, and finally it will be published. And once a PCR is published, it will be valid for 5 to 10 years depending on the product category. And once in a while that will be maintained and updated, right? So throughout this process, as a LCA practitioner or as a EPD consultant, you may involve in that process, either as a primary stakeholder or as a secondary stakeholder, right? So any program operator, they would announce in website through LinkedIn post, okay, we are about to prepare a PCR for so and so product category. Those who are interested can fill up the form. So you fill the form and submit. Based on the receipts of number of forms, they will shortlist and they will invite you to join such a meeting, right? So working group, technical group formation. Okay, you can involve and you can share your inputs. So that's how in this large and very broader process, you may be part of it, right? Either as a primary or secondary stakeholders, right? But mostly you don't need to worry about the development of a PCR. You will be utilizing a PCR, right? You will be the user of a PCR rather than creator of a PCR, right? And once the program operator is fixed, PCR is ready, then you have to perform the life cycle assessment. And I hope you are already aware about what is life cycle assessment, right? So that's the stage now, and it has four different stages or levels. Starts with the goal and scope definition, life cycle inventory, life cycle impact assessment, and life cycle impact interpretation, right? Sometimes people used to say LCI, LCIA, LCII, but all put together we call it as LCA, right? So as I already mentioned, this is how the LCA is done. No, so now stage wise, if you see goal and scope definition, so if you want to write a goal statement, these are the questions you have to answer. So why you are doing the LCA, for whom you are doing the LCA. So when you are able to answer this, the goal statement is ready. Same way, the scope statement, what are the things that you are going to cover, what are the things that you are going to ignore, why it is so, and how you are going to perform the LCA, right? So answering these two questions will finalize your scope statement of the LCA, right? So that's the stage one, goal and scope definition. Now the second stage, the life cycle inventory, right? So you bring up the data either from the plant or from the literature, and you put it in a funnel. In the funnel, already the background databases are there. So your foreground data merged with the background data flows through the funnel, guided by the impact assessment method, finally gets your result, right? So these are the various background databases we have in the market. So EcoInvent is largely put up, which means that's the largest database globally we are preferring, right? So that's the reason why it is put up in a large term, right? So once that data are ready, this is how it may look like, right? So as a built up or structured inventory of a product. So this is a sample life cycle inventory for an electronic gadget, right? So you may have the data in any format, right? But as a consultant or as a LCA practitioner, you should be able to build a proper inventory so that only you can easily jump into the software and model the product, right? So before structuring, before forming a proper inventory, you will end up confusing a lot in the software part, right? So as a simple life cycle stage wise, they splitted raw material extraction, processing, manufacturing, and respective consumption, either as a material or as a energy, right? So the quantity mentioned, energy, water, and if it is there any waste. So now we can easily understand, okay, in A1 I have to add these as input and emerge something, some portions of that as a waste in the output, right? Likewise, right? So this is a typical life cycle inventory for a electronic gadget product. There comes the third step. What's that? Life cycle impact assessment. So ISO 14040 prescribed impact assessment methodology states three mechanisms. Any methodology. So we have n number of life cycle impact assessment methodologies globally preferred or globally in practice, but all of them are following these three mechanisms. First, classification, then characterization, then weighing, right? So these three mechanisms getting skewed through the data, right, and gives you the result. So why I preferred this particular Bahubali scenery here, I hope you might have watched the movie, right? I don't remember either it is a part 1 or part 2, right? That heroine was struggling with launching of 2 arrows at a time, but at that moment the hero entered and just like that easily flipping 3 arrows at a time, right? So showing mass, right? So it would have been very admirable at that point. But the point here is, even though the ISO 14040 states three mechanisms as the a typical background thing for a LCIA, classification and characterization is more than enough, right? The weighing is suggested only as optional element, right? So it's not actually suggested by ISO 14040, and it is left for individual customization, right? And there is no standard practice or standard methodology for normalization and weighing. It can be executed through a software or a manual process also, right? So classification and characterization are the major two mechanism happens, and you get the final number, right? So that's about your life cycle impact assessment method. Finally, you get the interpretation, right? So in the interpretation, you see three major elements. So you understand the significant issues, which means the hot spots. Then you do some evaluation, either by completeness check, sensitivity check, and uncertainty analysis, all those things. Finally, you draw conclusions, limitations, and recommendations. So these three elements are your the aspects of last stage life cycle impact interpretation. So while doing the interpretation stage, all the previous three stages, right? Goal and scope, inventory, impact assessment can be reviewed and can be updated, right? That is why they are all connected together, right? And that is why this entire 4-stage framework is quite flexible and quite iterative by nature. You can revise the goal and scope during the last interpretation stage also. So there is no first step, there is no last step kind of thing, right? It's completely flexible, and that is the only, or that is the major reason this 4-stage framework was last updated in 2007, right? 2007 I was 17 years old, right? So still it is being practiced without any modification, and I see that kind of a flexibility and iterative by nature is the major reason for that, right? So I can say that the same framework will prevail same as it is for the next 17 years also, right? And that is all about the life cycle assessment, right? So once you complete the life cycle assessment, you go for the verification, and this is the infographic for your verification process. Starts from the program operator. So they have the general program instruction, and based on the guidelines given in the GPI, they develop criteria to become an EPD verifier, right? So as an individual, one has to apply to the program operator to become a approved verifier under that program operator. So you should understand that becoming a verifier is not a universal one, right? It will be bound by the particular program operator. So I can be a verifier for that particular program operator by satisfying their own requirements and criteria, right? Same way, I can be a individual individual verifier in any number of program operators separately. So I can say myself, okay, after some 5 years, I can say, okay, I am a approved verifier in EPD International, in EPD Hub, and in UL, in Kiva, and in Echo Passport. Likewise, I can say, which means I personally satisfied the requirements of all the individual program operators separately, right? So that's it. So you get the criteria. Once you apply them, and they will review your application, they match up with the criteria, and they will call you for an interview, online interview, right? And you have to submit your documentation of all your claims, and they would interact with you. So based on that, they announce the result later. Okay, so and so have been selected as a individual verifiers, right? So once they become the verifier, they will be taught, they will be trained about the respective verification process under the respective program operator with the verification checklist, right? So the verifier will get trained about the verification checklist and do the verification. So typically the verification checklist has 3 parts. Part A will be about calculation rules plus reporting of LCA result. Right, that's the detailed background LCA result. Right, then part B will be about the EPD. Okay, when you say EPD, it is a one document. But when I mentioned what are the documents that you have to send to the verifier, two documents, background LCA report and EPD, right? So background report will be communicated only to the verifier. It will not be published. That's a very proprietary kind of a material document for a company. Okay, detailed environmental result will be there. So from the detailed environmental result report, you get some abstract information and put it in the EPD document, and that is why that is only will be published for a public pursuit. Okay, so part A will be about the background report and part B about your EPD, and part C sometimes you may need to adhere with multiple number of standards, and respective requirements will be considered under part C, right? So this is the overall visual representation of a verification process. So verification process, in other terms, you may connect with your academic research paper publication, right? So when you want to publish a research article, what will happen? You submit, you get desk rejected these days, right? So once you want to go through the review process, some of the peer reviewers review your paper and make comments, right? And you as an individual author or co-author of the paper, you address all those comments, right? Same way the verification will be there. So verification will be happening twice, thrice, more than that also sometimes, right? Am I audible? Yes. Right. So finally you publish the EPD once the verification is done. So the published EPD will be having two different formats, either as a machine readable format or a human readable format, right? So human readable format would be PDF preferably. The machine readable formats would be different formats, CSV, JSON and XML. So those machine readable formats will be having their own application in automatic LCA calculation, certification submissions and public procurement tools, so as to directly connect with the EPD for a easy handling, right? So that's the two major types, or two different versions your EPD will get published, right? And here are the types of EPD. So we see single product EPD, group EPD, industry average EPD and design EPD. So single product in the sense, okay, you have a plant and you produce a product, and for that product you publish an EPD, that is single product EPD. Sometimes you have a plant, you produce multiple variations of the same product. Okay, for example, if it is a glass product, there are different thicknesses of glass. Okay, if there is a concrete block producer, there are different density based concrete blocks would be produced. So in that kind of a case, in a single EPD you can accommodate more number of products, right? So in that case the EPD will be called a group EPD, right? Then the third case, industry average EPD, in the sense there would be a association of manufacturers. Okay, under that association 10 different manufacturers are there producing same product, right? So instead of going as individual in the market, they want to go as a association, so as to share their profit, so as to build their own brand visibility of their association. So in that case, taking the data from all the 10 different plants and come up with the average values, and with the average value you prepare a EPD. That EPD will called industry average EPD, right? So that's not a specific one for a so and so product from a so and so industry, right? It's common for a whole association, right? And finally, design EPD. So normally the EPD to be produced, you need average of 12 months production data, right? Which means your product should be manufactured at least 12 months and available in the market for going for a EPD, right? That's the fundamental line. But still, sometimes you may want to get EPD for the sake of procurement and other green regulations and compliances. You may want to publish the EPD earlier. So during the design stage itself, you can publish an EPD. So in that case, the design EPD will be valid for 12 months. So within that 12 months, you have to come up with the 12-month average data and you have to update the EPD, right? So that's what called as design EPD, right? And that's all about the stages involved in a EPD development, right? It starts with the program operator, finding a PCR, jumping into the LCA process, completing it, go for the verification, get it published, right? And these are the standards which are globally available for EPD development. So we may say core standards, we may say sector specific standards, and we may say regional adaptations and supporting standards. So core standards, as I already mentioned, 14025 is the type 3 eco labeling ISO standard, and 14040 and 14044 is the fundamental LCA framework. So they are the core. Then sector specific, if you see, EPD was initially developed for the sake of construction products, right? But these days more additional sectors are also following it, but earlier it was meant for construction products. So ISO launched a specific construction based EPD standards, ISO 21930, right? So that 21930 is actually being preferred America and other regions, and Europe and other global regions following EN standards, EN 14804 plus A2, right? And the TRACY methodology is exclusively meant for American region, American and North American continent, we can say, right? And apart from these core standards and sector specific standards, sometimes regional specific requirements may arise, right? So they may come in the name of complementary PCRs, right? Then finally, supporting standards 14020 and 14067. 14020 is nothing but how you present the results of eco labeling, either type 1, type 2 or type 3. And 14067 is nothing but product based GHG accounting, right? So these are the allied and supporting standards. So these are the categorized set of standards we typically use or follow in the context of EPD, right? So I hope that was very clear and detailed. I expect questions from you, but still, let me complete the things, right? So why EPD? There are lots of reasons are there. Under the compliance and market competitiveness, we want to follow the regulations, and we want to support the procurements based on the EPD, growing demands over that, right? Then obviously going for a green building certifications, they need EPD. So EPD can become a major player in that. And sometimes the investments stakeholder commitment comes based on the EPDs only, right? So they compare between the products based on the availability of the EPD for the finance and investments and other relevant things, right? Then under environmental impact and transparency, we may do the verification scientifically about environmental data through EPD, and we say whole life carbon tracking or any embodied carbon or operational carbon mitigation strategies based on the EPD results we see, right? And in the other terms, circularity, circular economy, those kind of things. So that circularity related information is authenticatedly provided in the EPD, right? Ultimately, the trust and credibility, right? So the product holds the EPD is actually, as I mentioned earlier, type 1 is a certification, type 2 is a self-claiming, but type 3 is not a certification, not a self-claiming, it's a declaration. Okay, so when I want to declare myself, I volunteer myself. Okay, so by doing so, I gain trust from the customer basis. So from that credibility perspective, the product which has a EPD, which does not has a EPD, has the variation, right? Obviously, future projections and business growth, under lot of heads, EPD takes you further, right? If you are a local manufacturer, you want to expand your product or your brand in the global marketplace, then you definitely get a EPD and gets the visibility automatically, right? So people are from Middle East, especially Qatar, Saudi Arabia, they started putting EPDs as mandatory thing, right? In the public procurement kind of places, because those regions are always fond of constructions, right? Buildings, construction, new projects. So in all the upcoming constructions related projects, Qatar government and Saudi Arabia had put mandatory about having a EPD, right? So the producers of those regions are badly looking for a EPD practitioners and the relevant human resources who can work in the LCA and EPD publication activities, right? Here comes the last segment, commissioning of an EPD project, right? So these are the typical workflow, right? You understand the product, you keep a discussion with the manufacturer and define the scope. Okay, so while defining the scope, you actually finalize the program operator, you finalize the product category rules, all those things, right? Then you start collecting the data for your LCA. So the data collection is the major step where you may spend a lot of time, right? Sometimes months of time it will take when it is involving more number of plants, right? So the manufacturer does not have only one plant, but they are having multiple plants. So it may take huge amount of time, right? So I am actually have been waiting for a final form of data from a Qatar based organization for past 1.5 months already, right? So they are actually a concrete producer, ready mix concrete producer, and they are about to get a EPD for their multiple plants. I think 6 plants they are having, and they are almost having nearly 2000 concrete mixes, different concrete mixes. So out of all the 2000 mixes, they want to come up with the EPD for the 13 popular mixes in a single EPD. So it's quite a very complex a project, and they are spending a lot of time in the data collection, right, for the past 1.5 months. I am expecting the data maybe in the next 2 weeks, right? So the data collection happens mostly and very complex time consuming stage, right? Then once the data is ready, you build the inventory, you prepare your own structure, then you jump into the LCA software, do the LCA modeling, perform the calculations, then you prepare the reports, right? EPD and background report. Then you go for the verification, then you register and publish the EPD in the respective program operator website. So registration will come with the cost, publication will come with the separate cost, right? So once in a year, the validity of an EPD is a 5-year globally. So every year the manufacturer has to pay the respective renewal fees to maintain the EPD active state. Okay, during that 5 years period, in case if there is any change in your product, then the EPD can be updated, right? So that's also is there, right? So that's the typical workflow, right? and you during the workflow you adhere to ISO 14025 fundamentally and 1404044 for life cycle assessment, and any other 21930 or EN 15804 for the further adherence, right? So, on a final note, for a quality EPD to be developed, shared responsibility is expected. So both from the manufacturer side and from the EPD practitioner side, right? So because the manufacturer should understand the seriousness and weightage of an EPD. Sometimes they would be not aware about the requirement of an EPD, so they purposely delay it. Okay, somehow we initiated, let it flow it. Okay, we don't mind when it is getting completed, no matter what. So likewise they may think, so they may come up with some own filling up of gaps in the data availability, and not providing a very accurate data or providing somehow older data. So these kind of things people should understand as a manufacturer. Same way, as a LCA practitioner, PCR is the manual, right, guideline or a Bible kind of a thing. Okay, so following a PCR is the first and foremost part of an LCA practitioner in the context of EPD. And being a verifier is utmost important and a superior responsibility in the entire EPD context. So when the verifier is so strict, you will prepare a better quality EPD. When the verifier is so negligible, or they are not concerning, and they are very ignorant by nature, then you may end up developing and publishing a comparatively poor quality EPD. So it both exist, right? And we cannot expect the verifiers, all the verifiers are the superior qualified professionals. Right? Sometimes they also be ignorant to some very minute details and all. But on the other hand, sometimes certain verifiers are there, they would be very, very strict and super perfectionist by nature, right? So 6 times, 7 times they would send for the review and verification. So I recently published my first EPD in EPD International. I went for seven number of revisions. Okay, so submit, he will again ask a lot of questions. Submit, again lot of last questions. Even after revising everything, updating everything, correcting, improving, even in the 7th revision, he asked a couple of questions, right? So I somehow orally answered them and made him okay, satisfied. Okay, now we can go for the publication, likewise, right? So it's all up to the ethical responsibility of both LCA practitioner and a verifier, right? So that's it. That's the end of the session. I hope these are the typical key takeaways from the EPD as a whole. So I would like to ask you if there is any question before we have a last small slide to be concluded. So I would like to open for the questions. Yes, Professor. Yes, professor. So regarding the country-wise acceptance, ISO is globally a common and universal standard. Okay, ISO is not meant for a particular country, and with respect to Type 1, as I mentioned, it is based on a voluntary organization. So every country has their own voluntary organization. So from India, we have Green Pro as one of such a voluntary organization, and from government of India something is already proposed and is in the draft stage, eco mark, okay, which is going to be administered by the CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board. So they announced it in the 2024 later part of the year, but is yet to come. So once that eco mark comes, that will be another Type 1 eco labeling scheme, but this time it will be directly by the government of India. Okay, same way in any other random other country, if you take, they will be having their own Type 1 organizations, right? So the questions may be like, okay, I am a manufacturer in India, whether I should get certified Type 1 only within the India. Yes or no? No. You don't need to stick only within the India. It is completely your choice and your freedom. Being a manufacturer of a random product in India, you can go for a Type 1 organization of America and get certified. Right? But because in America, lots of Type 1 organizations are there and they are addressing so specific product sector also. Right? So there is no particular guidelines or a restriction between the country selection. You can be anything. And Type 3, as I mentioned, all the ISO is meant for universal interpretation. Type 3 again doesn't come with the respective regions. On the other hand, it is respective market, we can say. For example, EPD International, as they were the very first one established program operator earlier, so they are quite popular. Okay, so when your product needs an EPD, you can prefer them. But very specifically, if your product is going to be sold or exported in US region, then you have to prefer a program operator located in US region, because globally we can split the standards in two parts: American region and all other regions, because America, they have their own requirements, right? Tracy method, only 7 indicators, and UL underwriters laboratory as a program operator, and more emerging program operators are there in America. Okay, but when you want to export to non-American countries, you have to follow the EN standard. Okay, so whatever the program operators are running based on the EN standards or accepting the EN standard, you can go for the those program operators for non-American country based exports, right? Because you take Middle East, they are consuming lots and lots of amount of construction products. Okay, but they are depending on European standards. They don't follow American standard. Okay, whatever Europe follow, we will follow. So they love to follow UN standard. So when you become a consultant and when you outsource the requirement for Middle East, Europe, and some other parts of Asian countries, you stick with European standards, EN standard, right? So there is no, literally country-specific requirements. It's all about where you are exporting your product. If it is America, then you need to be specific. If it is non-American region, it can be any other choice. Likewise. Yes, please. Yes, please. all the issues I faced. If I want to talk, I will talk over the day. So I completed, I published two EPDs, right? One is from program operator EPD Hub. They are located in Europe, okay, but they are serving global regions. The product was fiberglass based reinforcement bars. So the manufacturer was from Michigan, America, US, almost the border of Canada and US, right? So there I was supposed to use one-click LCA as a LCA tool, right? So everything will be built inside the one-click LCA tool. You don't need to work outside of the tool, right? So it was quite very handy and simple and straightforward. So because what are the segment of the report you have to prepare, it will be there in the software itself. You just need to fill up the box, okay? So it's quite very straightforward. So on the other hand, the second EPD, I was working for a Abu Dhabi based manufacturer, AIC block, concrete block. There I used another software, Echo Chain Mobius. This time I had to prepare the documents on my own, manually, through MS Word and other things, right? So at that time I was like, okay, there is no data, because as I mentioned, you may able to download EPDs once it is published, right? But as I already mentioned, there would be two documents to be required. So the detailed background report and the EPD. So EPD only you will be able to see from the websites, right? But you may not download, or you won't able to download the detailed background report from anywhere else. It's completely proprietary and confidential report, confidential kind of document. Nobody would share that. So at that time I was having that challenge. Okay, how it will look like? Okay, what are the sections I should add? What are the sections I don't need to add? I really don't have an idea. I discussed with friends and come up with a lot of references, online references. As you see, there are quite courses on EPDs, right? So I generated the template myself, and it came for some 70 to 80 pages. I really don't know whether it was correct or wrong until it was getting accepted by the verifier. So it was like first time, right? First time interacting with the stranger and preparing my own standard. The verifier was initially telling, once I was calling him, he was telling, Saravana, I don't accept these projects if I don't like your report. That's what the first comment he said. He is actually a very senior kind of a professional, right? So the one who was actually agreed to review, verify my LCA, during the final moment she backed up. Okay, I had to find another verifier in a very short period. So I was very much worried about that. But when he was starting the conversation, this is what he mentioned. I will see your report first. If I don't like the report, I cannot take up the work. That's what he said. So on the other hand, I was doing it all my first time. So I was, pretty nervous. But somehow he did not get disappointed by seeing my report, and he agreed to take up the project. So that's what I said. He sent me 7 times with the revisions. So when I say 7 times, I'm really happily saying it, because it's not a problem. It is actually shaping up the quality of your EPD to the maximum level, right? So that's why I happily say that 7 times, right? So that's the kind of process. But with the manufacturer, especially when you are working as an individual consultant, the interaction with the manufacturer will be more difficult than with anybody else, right? They don't normally understand the thing. They would be very much specific about their requirement. That's all. They want this, but how they have to go to that point, they don't mind. But when we want them to do something, then they would question a lot of things, and they would show a lot of kind of hindrance why I should do that. So we are busy, we are doing that, we are doing this. So we need to be so educative towards the manufacturer first of all, because they have the requirement, they have the money, that's all, right? But you may need to teach them fundamentally how it is to be done, whether it is good or bad while doing this way or that way. Every this and that you have to discuss with them. So that's the part I felt quite challenging, especially with the manufacturers of Gulf region, because they would be like they won't be satisfied at all, right? So they won't be satisfied whenever, especially you are working with Gulf people. So they would be very much superior with the finance and other things. They have a lot of money to spend, but once they ask some question, until you literally serve to that question, they won't agree to your words. I was encountering that kind of situation with that manufacturer, especially with there is a parameter called post-consumer recycled content in the product. Okay, so that had to be 0 for that particular product, but that manufacturer was arguing, no, we are having some recycled content, we are having some recycled content. I explained to them that is not a post-consumer, that is a pre-consumer, which cannot be accepted under the context of EPD. But they were very much adamant about that, and even during the last moment of publication, they were unhappy about that, right? Which cannot be done either way, right? So that's the kind of situations where you need to be ethical, and you need to be bold and confident about your stand. No, this cannot be accepted, this cannot be implemented, I am not going to do that. So these are the words you need to be saying to the manufacturer, especially when you are working for a company. It would be a whole different scenario. You cannot sound against your boss, right? But you have to. That's the problem of being an LCA practitioner. So I always say this particular term to my students in every course. Being an LCA practitioner, you should never think of wearing the shoes of the manufacturer. That is their responsibility, right? You declare what is to be declared. That's all. That is your job. Okay. Actually, sir, the program operator, you have to check their website, because every program operator in their website, they would declare who are the approved EPD verifiers. Okay, so there is no worries, there is no confusion. You can directly go to the website and you can check whether the particular name is there or not. If it is there, he is approved. Then there is no then there is no question. Then there is no question, sir. We cannot question that. It is approved. He is approved as an organization, as an individual, right? So the first question is, there is no mandatory or there is no specific requirement based on different product and based on different region the software has to be preferred. So you can use either OpenLCA, Gabi, CIMA-Pro, One-Click LCA, Echo Chain, anything you can use, no issues. But in the detailed report, you have to declare it. Okay, I used so and so software and I used so and so database. Okay, so that has to be declared. And I don't think there is no further specific requirement among the software. It's only the availability, that's all. But I usually come across certain manufacturers would be so specific about the software requirement. So that is because of their own network of people who told them, okay, use CIMA-Pro, that's all, right? So they would be very much specific about, if you are using CIMA-Pro, then you are on board. No sir, I don't use CIMA-Pro, I don't have 10 lakhs rupees. I use OpenLCA. So they won't even ask what is the difference between OpenLCA and CIMA-Pro. They just close the call, that's it. You don't have CIMA-Pro, no project. But the thing is, CIMA-Pro and OpenLCA is like your laptop. But the database is like your OS. Okay, you can use any different laptop until you use the same OS, right? So I use Echo Invent. That is not the matter of discussion here. But people sometimes think, okay, CIMA-Pro is a LCA tool within which everything is available. It's not the matter of fact. CIMA-Pro is just a tool within which we prefer some databases. That's all. Database matters more than the software. Yes, Professor. Simple NDA, they would put NDA because myself working as an individual consultant, right? So they don't normally trust the independent consultant, first of all. And when they really want to do that, they would start with the NDA, right? In the NDA, it would be very clear. And we would not only digitally sign and send back, sometimes they would take it, ask you to take a printout, sign it, and put up some witnesses, their details, and put it in the post. So it's a quite short and brief, Professor. So through a simple NDA, they are ready to work, they are ready to collaborate. By the same way, we trust those verifiers also, right? So they are not individual, they are actually representing a program operator, right? So in case if they are come across with any issues, not only their name will get damaged, the whole program operator's credibility will get damaged. So it's a lot of big perspectives are there. So we don't need to worry about that data privacy and all. Yes, Professor. So, as I mentioned, I started with one-click LCA. One-click LCA would be too much of user-friendly, but the problem is once you do an LCA in one-click LCA, you will never have a feel of completing an LCA, right? So you just fed the data, you click the submit button, that's all, right? Am I audible, Professor? So that's how the one-click LCA works, right? You don't have the feel of doing an LCA in one-click LCA. On the other hand, open LCA would be like too much of manual thing. You may need to bring and put up all the nuts and bolts for preparing your model, right? From the basic to an advanced level of modeling. So once you do the LCA in open LCA, you will have a huge satisfaction of completing a model. Okay, I had done something in the software. Likewise, each and everything you have to manually put up. And echo chain would be so straightforward. So they would be put up the categorized wise data requirement. Okay, these are the data we want. Likewise, you just fill the number, you attach the background data set, submit, that's all, right? And I also worked on a software called Carbon Graph, which is actually a Kannada based. That's a visually very good one. It will be like connecting the processes. So people said in Gabi also the same way would be there, but I have never used Gabi and Sima Pro because of the unavailability of the software for a free of charge or any other demo purpose, right? So I used one-click LCA, highly user friendly, and open LCA, echo chain Mobius, and carbon graph. So each one is having their own plus and minus, but I personally prefer open LCA among all the things, including the cost perspective, right? So when I put up a cost, open LCA tops everybody, right? So for the cost, what's the value it gives? The value proposition, you people know it better than me, right? So the value proposition, OpenLCA tops the chart. Yes, Professor. I actually for that only I had a last couple of slides. Not a couple of slides, only one slide, right? I hope the screen is visible, right? Yes, fine. So everybody would be having that question to become an LCA expert. So fundamentally, I don't believe the term expert at all, right? So everybody is a kind of a practitioner and always in the learning phase. You may call sometimes as an expert, right? So these are the three things. If you are interested towards product level LCA, then you stick with the ACLCA, American Center for Life Cycle Assessment, and they are being the only one globally popular and recognized professional organization for LCA. Okay. They are having lots of certifications. You may explore their website, and each of the certification follows followed by required qualifications and other things. So apart from that certifications, they have their own membership through which you can be in touch with the global activities regarding the LCA, right? And you may expand your network. So currently speaking, from India, around 10 people are there as members in ACLCA, right? So that's the quite kind of exposure this organization has among the professionals, right? So they are not so interested in marketing their organization. That's the reason majorly. And since they are situated in America, in India their reach is so less. But professional standards wise, they are the top notch organization, right? So please keep in touch with the ACLCA and about their own certifications, and you match up with your own requirement, your ability, your qualifications and the certification requirements, right? So get any certification based on your existing experience, which would be a great for your LCA based career. Okay. Then regarding the EPD, globally speaking, this is the only platform which is offering in detailed online courses, online education for the EPD development, right? So they are having a separate section called Eco Education, under which they are offering lot of courses. They are offering qualified Eco EPD officer, qualified Eco EPD practitioner, communicator, lot of things are there. You can explore their website as well, right? And if at all, if you are specifically interested in building level LCAs, one click LCA is the ultimate destination for you, right? So I hope all of you know they are having their own academy and they are offering all the courses for free, right? So if you are stick with building LCA, then you forget ACLCA, you forget Eco platform, you just stick with one click LCA, that's all, right? You just follow them, you take all the courses from their academy, that's all, that's enough. Because globally speaking, for performing building level LCAs, one click LCA is becoming a monopoly, right? So whether it is good or bad, right or wrong, that's not a problem for us, right? But the point is, they are aggregating the world's largest database for construction sector. That is why they are becoming the ultimate destination for a building level LCA. Right? You may think for a whole building level LCA you can use EcoInvent, but EcoInvent won't be sufficient. EcoInvent will have very few amount of data sets for a building level LCAs, right? Whereas one click LCA is completely preparing structured themselves exclusively for building LCA, right? So that's the point I wanted to share. So if at all, if you want to expand your career and becoming more relevant with respect to the LCA, these are the two directions: ACLCA for product LCA and one click LCA for a building LCA, and Eco platform for EPD relevant related informations and education requirements, right? Great, Professor. Super, Professor. Yes, please, Professor. I couldn't get that point. What was that? Energy audits and EPD. Okay, fine. So for EPD context, when we do LCA, we have the data for electricity consumption or energy consumption as a whole, okay, for a given manufacturing facility. Most of the cases we will encounter one situations where they are producing multiple products, but they are not having track of individual products electricity consumption. So they will have a single electricity consumption measurement, okay, for the whole facility for the last 1 year. This is the annual electricity consumption. That's the only one single data. So and so kilowatt hour is the one single number they would supply to us. But for the LCA purpose or EPD purpose, we want to model only one product or very few out of all the available products. So at that point, what would happen? We may need to do the allocation from the whole part of the facility towards a particular product, right? So that allocation is not so good because it dilutes your accuracy of the data, right? So even though we follow some established mathematical steps, but still that's not the actual data. You are deriving it, right? So it becomes a secondary data sometimes, right? So energy auditing, when you go, the same thing you would have come across. But what you may suggest them is the streamlining processes for separate product should be having a separate metering, right? So that's what you may suggest to the manufacturers, especially during the energy audit, right? So apart from that, there is no direct implications or connectivity between energy audit and EPD development. We have the data. How we model that data in the LCA matters, right? And we have options, right? Market based electricity modeling and location based modeling. So these are the concepts are there, right? But the problem is not individual metering is available for the products. That's the quite common problem. You are asking about the quality of the data and how I assure that. Yes, actually they don't ask me as a LCA practitioner. They would ask what data you require. Okay, so I will share the template. These are the data I require, and I even take some training sessions, 1 or 2 hours to all the concerned persons virtually, and they go back to the manufacturing facility and they work with the subordinates and they come up with a filled in data sheet. Okay, so when I open that data sheet, I would read them. Okay, whether the data is available for a functional unit or not, because we define the functional unit and they lodge the data based on a different perspective or a different parameter. So most of the times both of them would not get to match up with, right? So we may need to convert the factory available data for the functional unit based data. So that would be the requirement of LCA practitioner to be done, right? And while we are converting the data, we may have questions. At that time we may need to discuss with them, so they would clarify. It's like a two-way process. It's not okay, they supply the data, you deal with it no matter whatever it is. So we do conversation, reverse conversation, and that's why it is taking up time until I finalize, okay, this is the final inventory before jumping into the software. So I need to spend a couple of days of time with the available Excel sheets, multiple Excel sheets, before preparing the final inventory, right? So that's the thing. And regarding the quality, we don't need to worry about the quality, because whatever the quality, we need to disclose in the LC report, right? So that's a requirement, especially in the context of EPD. You have to disclose the data quality based on EN standard or based on UN EP standard matrix, pedigree matrix will be there, right? So in either of the approach, you have to declare the quality. So no matter if it is a poor quality or best quality, it will be declared. And ultimately we would also mention how much amount of percentage of the data are primary data and how much percentage is a secondary data. That also would be disclosed in the final EPD. As per the clearest definition of primary data and secondary data, it is not at all possible to come up with more than 15 to 20 percentage of primary data in any EPD, because we ultimately depend on echo invent database, right? So when you use a database, it becomes a secondary data. You lost the credibility of a primary data. But you take up random EPDs from EPD International or any other program operator's website, they would mention the primary data percentage is 95%, 96%, which is not at all possible. So there is a continuous debate happens between what is actually primary data, what is actually secondary data. So you take this question, whenever an expert comes to your place, talk about LCA and data, you ask this question: how will you define primary and secondary data? Right? Everyone will have their own definitions and their own explanations. Right? So in the EPD context, this is a quite a challenging one. Each individual verifier will interpret the PCR and guidelines individually, right? So it doesn't matter he is a new verifier, he is an experienced verifier. So it changes with the verifier. So we work with verifier. So ultimately we need to answer the verifier. Okay, he asked me to put 93%. Okay, I put 93%. I may argue, but what if he is a very superior person? What if he is not working? Because I may argue I am an individual consultant, but whenever you work for a company, you cannot argue like that. Okay, you just adhere with whatever they are saying. Okay, like that. So, but there is a huge difference of opinion exists between primary data and secondary data. Yes, Professor. No paper would provide normally the data quality ranking. They won't do that. They may think if they are sharing that their work might be a wrong one, but the problem is there is nothing right, nothing wrong in the context of LCA. How far, how in detail you declare, that decides the credibility and quality of your report. So, but people are always worried about the numbers only, not about the quality of the data they used for that number. So you please understand, nothing right, nothing wrong in the LCA, unless otherwise you can scientifically justify it. That's all. So when you are able to scientifically justify a number, it is a right number. Whether it is a big number or a small number, that's a different part. When you don't able to scientifically justify, then it is a wrong number. That's all. Yes, Professor. Yes, Professor. Yes, so regarding the casting, three components are there, Professor. So registration, publication with the program operator. That's not a variable, okay? That's a fixed cost. Then second component goes for the LCA practitioner, okay, who is doing the LCA, the software, the database, all these things. Then third component will be for the verifier, okay, verification cost. So the second cost, the LCA practitioner cost and verifier cost, is a variable one. So it's not a fixed one. We can negotiate, we can go for a higher price, we can go for a lowest price possible. Anything is okay. But these are the three components. Typically speaking, from company perspective, okay, if there is a company who is contacting a client, which means a manufacturer, and taking up a project, right? So they may quote per EPD in Indian rupees starting from 6 lakhs to 10 lakhs sometimes, one EPD, one product. Okay, so that cost sometimes includes the verifier cost, sometimes excludes the verifier cost. So it's all about who is the manufacturer actually. Again, cost of. என்ன சுவிட்ச் ஆஃப்லாம் பண்ண சொல்றீங்க?